It's been fairly recently that I've decided to start making my own electrolyte mixes. The company Element gives the recipe they use in their mixes, but I decided I wanted to try to make my own because I reuse these little packets and I didn't like the idea of all the waste inherent in buying a commercial mix. So I just use powdered juice mixes from the grocery store, and then I add in the salts according to the recipe from Element. But since I use these little packets, I find it's a bit tricky to pour them into the mouth of the Smartwater bottles. Sorry, the background doesn't look too great. I'm in my shop. So yeah, you can see it's kind of hope for the best here. And I guess that works okay, but it's not always going to be ideal conditions, and I won't always be in my basement in controlled circumstances trying to do this, especially if I'm out on trail or something and the weather's crappy. So I thought a little funnel would be perfect. I noticed that the company Adotech is selling a version of a little ultralight funnel made of Dyneema, which sounds like a great idea, but of course Dyneema is expensive. But my little gear brain thought, oh, gear, should buy that. But then I thought, no, gotta control yourself. And I came up with this idea for making my own from used Ziploc bags, which I know are food safe. And this is what I have here. I just made 4 of them. And this is what they look like. And I decided to make them out of a Ziploc bag, which I know is food safe. So here's an example of an old Ziploc bag. And I use this IKEA child's bowl, which is about a 4.5-inch diameter, to draw a circle. And then you just cut out the circle and mark the center of the circle. After you cut out the circle and you figured out where the center of the circle is, then you can draw lines like I show here, where you can now cut out this little wedge. And what I find is that if the wedge is made a bit bigger, then I'm able to make the cone a little bit more tall and slender as opposed to more short and squat. So that's something that you play with as you're trying to fit it into your bottle. So now here's the Pac-Man shape, as I call it. And then all you do is you just go like this. That gives you a nice little cone. And I found that the tighter I make it, then it starts to pucker on the inside. So then I undo it and make this cutout piece a bit wider. So now I've cut it wider, as you can see, and I will cone it again. Now it's easier to get it tall and slender. And then I can try it out in my bottle, and that kind of fits nicely down inside there. If you wanted it to go a little bit more deeply into the bottle, then you just make that cutout area a bit bigger. And then what I did was I got a piece of packing tape and just put it on this seam, hold it down, and wrapped it over the top a tiny bit. There. Now the cone is locked down. And if you want, you can put a few more pieces just along the edge to fix the layers. And then what I did was I cut a hole in the bottom. And then just pour your drink in. The other thing I considered is that when this is in the bag with all the other packets, it kind of disappears in there. So that's why I decided just to put a little piece of orange duct tape on it so it stands out easily when it's in the bag and I don't lose sight of it. Let's see how much one of these weighs. Nothing. Four of them weigh nothing. How's that for ultralight? And reuse, recycle.